This episode is sponsored by me and Learn Light and Sound. We have courses on how to improve your lighting and sound for video, link down below. Also, this video is recorded entirely with the DPA 4017B shotgun microphone inside of the Radius Windshields Mini-ALTO. And that's recording into the Sound Devices 888 recorder just over here. I'm monitoring because I'm doing this alone and want to make sure that we get the audio okay. Also, full disclosure, Radius Windshields sent the Mini-ALTO 250 to me to make this video. They have not paid me further, and they have not reviewed this video prior to posting. All the opinions shared here are my own. First, let's get you some samples. All right, here we are talking into the DPA 4017B in the Radius Windshields Mini-ALTO 250. And that's being routed into the Sound Devices 888 here. This is what it sounds like. Let's do a little cueing here. Okay, not bad. Couple of things. If you cue really aggressively, you're probably going to need the fur cover. And if you've got winds that are anything more than 2 miles per hour, I would say probably put the fur cover on. Okay, here we are with the Mini-ALTO again. And now we have the fur cover on. You can see the fur blowing in the window just a little bit, just to give you a sense for the amount of breeze we're dealing with here. Let's do a little cueing. Okay, there is a little bit of handling noise, but I think pretty manageable. And the fur cover, you can hear this is how much it colors my voice before we were not using it, so you could kind of play those back to back to see how they compare. Now in this case, the wind is about 8 to 12 miles per hour, so the gusts are about 12 miles per hour, steady wind at about 8 miles per hour. We're using the Mini-ALTO with a fur cover on it for this entire episode, so you can hear what it sounds like out in those types of winds. Now, let me tell you what I know about microphone windshields, and I'm talking mainly in this particular case about the Mini-ALTO, but in the context of other Zeppelin style or blimp style covers that I've used, windshields that I've used. And these are the ones you're generally going to see on high budget film sets or even medium budget sets, whether it's film production, narrative, news, whatever, you'll see these types of covers. The slide-on covers are kind of in a different league. They're handy and they're appropriate at times, but as soon as you get, in my experience, once you get past 5 mile per hour winds or so, maybe a little bit faster than that, you're going to start to get some distortion. And the whole context of things here too, if you're not familiar, if you haven't recorded outdoors a whole lot, if wind, which is moving air, hits the capsule of your microphone, you get distortion. That's what gets recorded. And it's not something you can easily fix in post, if at all. If it's pretty severe, there's just no fixing it in post. So even with the newest AI tools.
Good morning, it's a bright and sunny day out in...
So using these windshields is not something that is outdated. You still need to use them. Now, physics are at play here. There are trade-offs all the time when you're doing this kind of thing, when you're designing a windshield. And let me run through kind of the 3 main types that you're going to see out there. First are the foam covers, and usually these come with a microphone. These have some advantages and some disadvantages. The advantages are they're simple to use, they're inexpensive, they usually come with a microphone. Getting them on position on the microphone is literally just sliding them on, so that's good. Downsides, they only work for the lightest of winds. I'm talking like 2 miles per hour, less than 1 meter per second winds, and even then they may not always be just right for that. So just be aware of that if you are planning to record outdoors and you don't have that experience. You're going to need something more than the foam cover. Now, they do also have another downside, and this is a downside of any windshield. The foam covers will impact the sound that your microphone captures. So if you make a recording without the foam cover on and then you put the foam cover on and listen and record again, same sound source, it will sound different. It's actually that foam will absorb some of the high frequencies and prevent it from getting to the microphone. So you'll end up with a slightly darker sound when you use the foam covers. Now, the next step up is the foam with fur over them. These are things like Rycote's made a bunch of them. Other companies have made them as well, but these are also simple to get on. You literally just slide them on the microphones. That's good. They can work in slightly higher winds. Again, maybe up to 5-6 miles per hour, a little over 2.2 meters per second. Once you get beyond that, they can start to fall apart depending on the particular one and your microphone and how sensitive it is to wind coming across the capsule. But they color the sound a little bit more because they're going through more material. These are usually from the more reputable companies like Rycote or like Radius. You're going to find that they're pretty well engineered. So they've done a lot of work to keep them as transparent sounding as possible while also protecting from the wind hitting the microphone capsule. So that's better than a lot of the just kind of cheap no-name brand ones that where companies without a lot of experience in this particular domain have tried to copy the more expensive brands like Rycode or any of the companies that focus on making windshields. You can get them at discount prices, but the problem is they usually haven't engineered them well, and the materials they're using may not be the most transparent. So there's a trade-off there as well. Third type is the Zeppelin or blimp style covers that we're talking about here. These usually work on the principle that they have an outer diffusion material, some sort of cloth, and you can also put a fur on top of that if you need to. But when the wind hits that cloth or that fur, it then gets diffused, and there's space between the inside of that outer cover and the microphone itself. So there's more space for the wind once it hits that material to diffuse before it gets to the microphone capsule. And these work these work better than the other types when it comes to higher velocity wind. So that's why you're going to see these for the most part on the higher budget sets, just because they work better. And if you are hiring an entire crew, camera package, lighting package, actors, or other sorts of talent, you've got a lot of money invested, you're going to spend a little bit more money on a windshield that is going to make sure that you get the audio that you need to. So that's the general idea with the Zeppelins. They're bigger. That's a downside. They're a little heavier. That's also a downside. They also take a little bit more time to get the microphone in and out of them versus the foam or the foam and fur covers. So those are some of the trade-offs as well. A lot of these, at least the higher quality ones like those from Radius, are engineered to be as transparent as possible while also optimizing the amount of wind that they can manage. So we've been out here again in this 8 to 12 mile per hour winds. Oh, there's a wasp right next to the microphone. You can probably hear that. Just landed on the transmitter pack. Okay, went away. So that's why you're spending the extra money for these, is you're going to get more assurance that you're going to come away with usable audio than you would by risking it with just a foam cover or even one of the foam and fur covers. All right, I have used 4 different Zeppelin style covers, and they've all been from Rycote and now Radius. And incidentally, Radius was started within the last 2 years, I believe, by the people that used to run Rycote. So they sold Rycote in 2018 and have since started Radius Windshields. So the 4 that I've used, the 4 different Zeppelin style covers, are number 1, the Rycote Supershield. We're hearing the wind is picking up a little bit here, you can probably see. The Rycote Supershield is quite effective. They were a very common style of windshield for the longest time, and there were a lot of knockoffs as well, but Rycote was kind of the original. They were good. They worked well. The downside is that they were difficult to get the microphone in and out of. You had to kind of unscrew the front and the back, and then it took a lot of work to get the microphone in and out of them. So when you were transitioning between shooting outdoors and shooting indoors where you needed to take the basket off, it took a little bit of time, but they worked well. The next one, and I never owned one of those. I've used them, but I never owned one of those. The next one is the Rycode Cyclone, which is made for higher winds. I purchased that one with my own money, and to this day I still use that one. I like it quite a lot, but the downsides are, the upsides are it's really good in even high winds, and I haven't even really needed to use the fur cover on it. I do have the fur cover for it, but I've never really needed it because the fabric that it uses on the Rycode Cyclone is a little bit thicker, but they engineered it and they did a lot of testing. It's fairly transparent sounding. Does cut a little bit of the high frequencies, but it's fairly transparent, and I've always found it to be super reliable. I've just really loved that windshield. It was also easier to get in and out of that one. It connects via magnets that hold the two parts of the shell together, the basket together, and getting in and out of that one was much, much quicker than the original Rycote Supershield. The next one I used was the Rycote Nano Shield. This was released, I think in 2020 or 2021, if I recall right, maybe 2022, but it was a much smaller type, and it also had a basket that would kind of fit on and kind of snap together with magnets. So it was a lot easier to get in and out of that one, although I found the Rycode Cyclone a lot easier to get in and out of than the Nano Shield. The Nano Shield was a little bit fiddly getting the basket front and back onto this very specific track on the shock mount base. But you know, once you got the hang of it, it was pretty good. It was much smaller. Now with those smaller windshield, it's a sacrifice because you don't have as much space between the outer diffusion material and the microphone, so it can't handle as high a wind, especially as a Cyclone. And it had a fairly light material on the outside. The great side was it was super light, super small, so it was less likely you're going to bump into things as you're queuing things around. But it was not, you know, you'd have to use the fur a lot more often. That brings us to the Radius Mini-ALTO, which I think is very much in line with the size of the Nano Shield from Rycote, but I would say that the basket is a lot easier to get on and off, and overall I think it sounds pretty transparent. Seems like they've done a pretty good job there. I would say the big improvements in the Mini-ALTO is that the basket's easier to get on and off, and they're using a different type of suspension. The hoops, I think, are a little easier. Are they easier to work with? They're effective. They work really well. I've been happy with them. The kit comes with my kit at least, the 250 came with 4 different sets of hoops, ranging in how flexible they are. And the more flexible ones, of course, are for lighter microphones, and the less flexible ones are for the heavier microphones. But there are all the options you need there for almost any microphone that will fit within this windshield. So that was really nice. It comes with all the things you need. It also has a little holder, so when you're transitioning from outdoors to indoors, for example, they have this little carabiner magnetic thing that you can attach the basket to and just clip it to your sound card, or maybe to a kind of a D-ring on your sound bag, vest, or whatever it is you're using. So they've really kind of thought things through, which is really nice. So far, my favorites are the Cyclone from Rycote and the Radius Mini-ALTO. Mini-ALTO is really nice for its small size. It's easy to get in and out of very quickly. That's a bird or something. Funky sounding bird. Then the Cyclone is better for higher winds, I would say. But again, the Mini-ALTO, really, really like it. Here are the things I like most about it. Small and lightweight. The hoop mounting system is really effective. It's a thermoplastic elastomer suspension system, and it manages shock mounts and moving and handling noise quite well, I would say. This is the easiest basket enclosure system in terms of magnets connecting it and just using the little elastic here to close it and kind of secure it for good. And the covers include both the fur cover, so for higher winds, again, I would generally say once you hit about 4 or 5 mile per hour, 2.2 meters per second or higher winds, higher velocity winds, then you need to put the fur cover on this one. And the kits also come with the cable. You can get them with the cable or without the cable if you already have your own cable. It's available in various sizes, so you can optimize the size that you buy for the specific microphones you're going to be using. So you never have to have a bigger basket than you really need for the particular microphone that you're using. So that's nice. The 250 kit with a cable is priced at $499 US. And for comparison, the equivalent Rycote Nano Shield is now $735 USD. So I'm not sure why their prices went so high. So that's a big part of the reason why I feel like the Nano Shield is kind of pricing itself out of the market. The Radius is a nice replacement. Now, the other thing that's nice about the Radius Mini-ALTO is that it's built around the shock mounts that Radius already ships that you can buy separately. And they're kind of putting the whole system together as a set of Lego building blocks. So you can, if you already own the shock mount, you can buy the basket kit to go along with it. So you don't have to buy an entirely new kit, which is nice. One thing to consider, if you are planning to use multiple microphones, if you want to consider this a con, if you're planning to use multiple microphones, you will have to switch out the hoops potentially, depending on how different your different microphones are in terms of weight and size. And the process of changing out those mounting or those suspension hoops is a little bit fiddly. You do have to get it comes with, but you do have to use this Allen wrench to take the old ones out and put the others in. It's a little bit fiddly. It's a tight space to work in. It works, and this is not an issue that is peculiar to the Mini-ALTO. All of the systems have this same consideration. So if you are going to be using multiple microphones in the kit, you need to budget the amount of time necessary to change out those hoops if you're going to need to do that. Also keep in mind that these smaller windshields, again, just to re-emphasize, if you're going to use it without the fur, it's probably good up to about 4 mile per hour, maybe 5 mile per hour, 2.2 meters per second winds. Once you get higher velocity than that, you are going to need to put the fur on it. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully that gives you some good context for those that are new to these types of windshields. Get out there and make some great sound, and we will talk to you again soon.